Ladies and gentlemen, the Tom Miaskiewicz.
All right.
I'm never going to
Quite the
pronounce it
intro.
right. Tom M. I'm super excited. So, for everybody listening, and if you haven't listened, you should. But Tom, you were on the podcast, I'm going to say about a year ago.
Yeah.
Um, you're an AI strategist. You're an AI consultant. You're the biggest AI expert in my sphere, would be the best way for me to like describe who you are. And it's already been really cool. So we talked a year ago or whenever that was, and we talked about, all the things that were coming on the horizon with AI and where it was at that point. And we were just talking off camera about how, golly, in a year and a half, or however long it's been, how drastic that world has changed. And you just got back. Remind me what the name of the conference was that you were just at.
It's called HumanX.
Human X.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very San Francisco name.
Right. Yeah. Sounds very San Francisco name. Nailed it. But you were just there last week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Start there. Tell me about, and what I'm getting at for everybody listening, and just so you know, Tom, kind of what I'm excited to pick your brain about is just how crazy the evolution of AI has been since our last conversation. I know that, your pulse on it has evolved quite a bit. And then now there's, you just had this conference, and I don't know, it just feels kind of fresh. So,
Yeah.
First I want to talk about maybe not even necessarily AI specifically, but I want to hear kind of how that conference was, like the vibe of it, the type of people that were there. Just give me like a brief, about how is Human X?
Yeah. I mean, definitely a lot of like new tools, latest and greatest types of things everywhere. Like you try to be like in tune with the AI industry, but obviously like going to where a lot of it is happening, probably most of it is happening. It definitely opens your eyes in terms of like what's on the horizon, those types of things. Weirdly also, maybe not weirdly, but what was unexpected was I kind of came back appreciating our kind of AI world here, which is, more rural, more human. Like we don't just like jump on the latest trend without like thinking about the human element of things. There was like sessions, I'm not going to say like everybody there had this mindset, but there was definitely sessions where you felt like it was a little disjointed from what I feel as a human being. Like there was just like, we're going on this train, let's go. Let's forget about all the other things that should matter in this situation.
Like human beings and stuff like that.
Yeah, and like jobs having to shift and like people's roles having to shift and industries being changed by some of these things. So like some of the, impacts of AI and how it's impacting our society, like some of that depth a lot of times didn't come through. But in terms of like skill building, it was great, but it just made me really appreciate kind of how here we're a little more thoughtful, maybe a little more cautious. And I think caution is a good thing in this space. We don't just, hype up AI and just hype it and just say, either you're part of this or you're out and we're going and we're going to leave you behind. We don't have that mindset here. Not to say again that everybody there has that. It's just kind of like definitely like a feeling where this train is coming and it almost seems like, it's just kind of moving ahead and there's no like pause and reflection, which I think is important with AI, to pause and reflect and determine like which version of AI do you actually want in your job and how much do you personally want to engage with it? Some of those things that we should grapple with because it's such a profound technology.
Yeah.
I feel like, it made me appreciate how much more of that we do. And again, people there's a lot of thoughtful people there. So it was just more of like a sentiment, how different it felt as opposed to like generalizing to everybody that's there. And there was like other, I was just having a conversation earlier about like just the cultural norms of like phones being out, like literally in front of the speaker, like 3 feet away. Yeah. Somebody's just like typing on the phone. I was sitting with like 20 people around me and everybody's on the phone. And, I think I love that here. Like talking to somebody, we give them their attention,
Right.
we have a human conversation about some of these technological distractions. That was actually pretty stark to me because, I'm pretty conscious of like, hey, this human in front of me
I'm
is
here to
really
talk to you.
important,
Yeah.
and I'm going to put my phone away. It's, silence, it's maybe even in the other room, and we're going to have a conversation there. There was just a lot of distraction. There was one session where even the facilitator of a round table was on their phone.
Really?
And I was like,
Do you think that was like a cultural difference because it was in LA or the AI sphere?
it was, I don't know. I don't know.
Hard to say.
Hard to
Yeah.
say, but it was just, yeah, like I do appreciate that, we have these spaces here where we engage as human beings, and, technology is part of it. And probably a part of it is, they're founders at big companies, and they have a lot of important things that are happening while they're facilitating session or engaging the session.
And
But
it's all
somehow
moving so
it's all
fast.
moving so fast. So yeah, I'm sure there's good reason for it, but it's, I do appreciate like how we approach things. It makes me feel better about where we are as a community.
You haven't lost hope in humanity yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw a post the other day on Instagram that made me laugh because it resonated with me. And it's basically like, I'm sitting here panicking, thinking that, I'm already so far behind with AI and the whole world's going to change from it. And then I have all the clients that can't figure out how to change the privacy settings on a Google folder link or something like that and it was just, it humanized of like, oh yeah, there's, because I think too, and I'm obviously in the digital marketing space. You're more so specializing in the AI specific space, but I would imagine that it's similar. And I want to hear your take on it. But in my world, I swear every day I'm hearing a new use for how agencies should be using AI or marketing should be using AI. And man, I go back and forth between like excitement. Okay, I'm adopting something. I'm trying it. I'm learning. I'm playing. Thank goodness I have Lou to, keep me on the forefront of what's important and what's not. But I'm like, I don't think I could ever. It's moving so fast and there's so much evolution and there's such a new thing. I swear it feels like daily there's a new thing. And I remember feeling like that when digital marketing was first starting, like algorithms and Google and paid search, all that stuff, and thinking like, I'm never going to be able to keep up. And I'm curious how you feel in that sense, knowing that it's really your area of focus and your specialty. Like, do you feel like it's moving even faster than you can keep track of? And how do you prioritize what you give your attention to as far as, actually learning and giving it the time of day?
Yeah, I mean, it is moving fast. People in the AI space are calling, and it hasn't gotten enough attention. The last, let's say, 3 to 4 months are being called kind of the great takeoff in terms of AI capabilities. Things have shifted in terms of how useful AIs are, to put it kind of in very simple terms. Um, I definitely found the AI useful before the last 3 to 4 months, but the capabilities have amplified so quickly. So for me, it's not even like the tools, but in general, like what's possible with AI has shifted pretty profoundly in the last 3 months. And I'm sure we're going to get into it. There's kind of we're at an inflection point where, chatbots are still here, but really we're moving into this agentic era of
Yeah.
AI. And the tools that fall into that space are really like what are kind of amplifying what's possible.
Yeah.
So, just kind of in terms of tools, I mean, there's the general purpose large language models. The big three right now are definitely Gemini, ChatGPT, and Claude. There's other great tools out there, but those are usually the top three. When I'm engaging with individuals, they're usually on one of those three. So those are like handle most of the use cases. They're kind of your general purpose AI. And then around it, there are like specialized AIs that do certain things really well. Focus on video, focus on image generation, focus on SEO,
Voice.
voice. That I think most people don't really need to worry about. I think just like understanding how the large language model can help, I think is a good first step. But then you think about what else you might need from these specialized tools. The honest truth is, if you're pretty good at using these large language models, um, most of the things that the specialized tools do, you can do as well.
Yeah.
It might take a little more time in terms of like setting it up, or prompting it, or providing with some context or instructions. You can, with tools like Claude, you can actually give it new skills and teach it new skills. So you can usually use that large language model for most of what you need AI for. So I find myself more and more in the large language model space because they're also becoming more capable.
Right.
I've actually like canceled a lot of subscriptions in the last 3 to 4 months because, again, these large language models are just becoming so much more capable.
Capable of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I found, and I want to, we're going to definitely talk about agentic AI. Am I even saying that right? Agentic.
Yeah.
It's an agent.
Yeah.
Agentic AI. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I want to get there for sure. Before we do, I want to talk a little bit about specifically marketing and AI. So as you know, one of the things that we do here is SEO, which search engine optimization. And now we're starting to do GEO,
Mhm.
generative engine optimization. And I had a interesting moment. So we finally now, you're going to laugh at me, but I finally now got AI visibility in our reporting for our clients. So the clients that we're working on making sure that they're visible in AI answers and stuff like that, we can now finally at least track how often they're showing up, the traffic that we're driving to their site from chat LLMs and things like that.
Mhm.
And but I had an interesting. So I'm shopping right now. I'm in the early stages of designing or deciding what to do for a outbuilding on my property, the barn with whatever. And I've been using an LLM to help me kind of plan and brainstorm and whatever. But I've been looking at these prefab kits or doing it myself, and I'm like, there's so many options. And I found myself like browsing through all these websites and whatever, and only to find that they don't ship to Colorado or they're too expensive. And I did this. I like really thought it through, and I did what I thought was like this great prompt. Like what I'm looking for, what to scrub, and the parameters, and what to send me as a result, and whatever. And it was cool because it was actually genuinely helpful. Like it got me on sites that I hadn't found through normal searching. And anyway, it was a little bit of an insight for me as far as how consumer behavior is going to evolve with search behavior, like more of those complex, longer buying cycle searches, and how they're going to be how humans will be using AI to basically do what would have taken me hours of a buying cycle, prompt all my parameters into it and then get like the top five results. So it was really cool. But I'm curious, like a couple of things that I would love your perspective on. One would be, when you can tell, I talked to you about, well, actually, before I get there, first, I want to talk about sort of the perception of marketing using AI. And if you see that something is, whether it's AI generated or AI assisted or whatever, right now, from in your sphere and kind of your perspective on it all, does that make it seem like it's a better product or a worse product? Or what do you think kind of like the impact of a AI assisted, marketing piece of marketing, the impact of that on consumers? Good, bad, indifferent?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's different like levels of quality. You can push it to the point in which the output coming from AI is pretty good in terms of what the consumer is saying, whether it's like a website, whether it's some sort of social post, whether it's a blog post. Like there's varying degrees. I think there's a skill set that goes along with it in terms of how well can you use these tools to reflect something that you would represent as a quality output. I think there is a lot of resistance to a lot of things that are just purely produced with AI because I think a lot of it is just frankly bad.
Yeah.
So
I call it AI slop.
yeah, I mean, there's plenty of that. I think, a lot of times AI is also like something that gets you like 80% there. It could be the idea generation. It could be like a partially finished product, but there's still a human element that goes on top of whatever work AI did to add, like the lived experience. These LLMs are not living in our community. To have a point of view. Usually the large language models give you like the average of all views of all humans. And that's not interesting. Like, we
Right.
don't want the average. We want the point of view. This is good. This is bad. This is something you should buy. And this is like a product that you shouldn't buy, or just like in general, like stating some sort of opinion. So I think that's important. I think a lot of times also like the AI doesn't capture some of the things that are like internal to an organization. I think a lot of things that are compelling in terms of consumers is something that's like unique in some way. So maybe like you can like cite some research that nobody else has access to because you did the interviews
Right.
yourself.
Right.
And they're not just like condensed into all the other interviews done on that topic in the LLM. So I think it's kind of like, I think it's in general, I don't think the AI output is like there. I think some of it is the operator. And I think a lot of times, I think people use AI as a shortcut,
Mm.
whereas I think it's just like a tool to get to something more,
A better
a better
as
outcome.
opposed to a shortcut to a similar quality. There's a belief that you could use it as a tool to get to a better quality. But it's
Exactly.
not necessarily a shortcut.
Yeah, and I wouldn't use it as a shortcut. I mean, I think a lot of stuff that you see on the internet is shortcuts.
Right. I've been
So
seeing a ton with AI logos right now. It's like, and I think of like the message an AI logo sends about a business that uses it. You know what I mean? Like if that's it, like that's what it's your business. You know what I mean? I don't know. It feels like low effort.
yeah, and for some things like the AI content works, the AI output is pretty good. I think there's also just like a level of like understanding, like, stepping into the shoes of the consumer, and like if they see this and this is AI, like let's say it's like a customer testimonial, right? Like if it's an AI generated customer testimonial, that's probably not a good thing. Like people want real customers
Right.
giving testimonials versus like, some sort of content that's like an infographic showing how your product works. Like in that space, AI probably can do a pretty good job. It has gotten really good at images. It's getting better at video. So I think in the right kind of content themes, it can still work, but you need the human to determine like for this isn't like something that a consumer is going to react positively to. And I think that's really a big part of marketers today is like having this level of understanding where they can say AI goes here,
But it
doesn't go
there.
it doesn't go
Yeah.
there, or maybe like there it helps me brainstorm, come up with initial script, but then I'm going to execute on it, with like real videography and with a photographer in the
Right.
community. So I don't think there's like kind of a catch-all answer. I think also like kind of coming back to where we started, AI capabilities are moving faster and faster, and in a lot of these spaces where 6 months you couldn't do anything useful with AI, now all of a sudden you can.
Like
So sure,
legitimately useful. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And I'm curious too, because I think there are times, I mean, we've even seen it here where a piece of AI work, whether it was, a creative thing or a script or a piece of content or whatever, sometimes it's phenomenal, sometimes it's not. And I'm curious with your expertise, I don't know if signs is the right way to put it or whatever, but what I'm curious about is when you come across a piece of an AI product, whatever it is, an image or a video or a blog post or whatever, I'm thinking you can probably tell if whoever prompted it was skilled or not. And because I think there's kind of some evolution now to where, I mean, Lou is the case study of it here at Ascend. You can, even if AI is assisting with creating the thing, the expertise that she has and other people like her to get the thing at the level it needs to be is a skill set in and of itself. And I'm curious if, like, when you see things like that, or tell signs, if I'll try to say that 5 times fast. When somebody has a sophisticated or a proper or a high quality prompt as opposed to a low quality prompt, like what are the major differences that you can see?
Yeah, I mean, I would actually say a lot of it doesn't come down to the prompt.
Mm,
It's what,
thanks for the curveball.
yeah. Well, it can, but usually like individuals that are really skilled, like Lou, like their AIs have the proper context to
Context.
to do a great job. So there,
Meaning it's been trained.
it's been trained on whatever it needs to help you with. So context can come from like documents it has access to, maybe some sort of like notes or strategy briefs. It also can capture context itself. You can say, go out, and this gets into the agentic piece, go out on their Instagram, read every post, go on their website, read every piece of content. It gets a very rich understanding of whatever you're creating content about. And then your prompts become very basic because
Because it has the
it
context.
has the context. It really understands the specific use case that we're working within. Let's say it's like, creating some sort of product for a business in a very deep way. And that's really what we do as humans, right? Like we immerse ourselves in whatever we're are kind of working on. Like you can't just like design a logo or write a blog post for a business in a domain that you don't know
Right.
anything about.
Right.
Like you need to immerse yourself in it. You need to have the proper context. And these modern AIs, I mean, one of the big shifts that's happened is just the amount of context that they can take in. I mean, they can literally have thousands of pages of context and use all of that to craft something that's really specific to what we're talking about. When I reflect on my prompts, it's like half sentences, misspelled words. It's really directions, not like filling in like what kind of information is relevant. It already has all the information that's relevant.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of pointing it in a direction that I want it to go. So, um, we still talk about prompt engineering. To me, I don't even like the word engineering because it makes it seem like it's
It
something
seems
that
daunting.
yeah, it's something for technical people where, we're just talking about language here,
Right.
describing things. Managers are great users of AI because they can describe things in clearer ways. They can prompt engineer really well, but they've never been taught, prompt engineering
Right.
skills. So, basically where I was going is like, some of that still will matter, like crafting a prompt when there isn't context, when you're jumping into a space for the first time. And that's really what prompt does. It fills in the context it doesn't have.
Mm.
But ideally, like to be really productive with AI, it has all the context it needs. Like there is kind of a setup process, like being thoughtful and making sure the AI has seen the things it needs to see, has access to the things it needs to access. And then all of a sudden, like you can create things that are really spot on, with some AI artifacts sometimes, but like spot on in terms of like the vision really, really quickly. So to me, like that's like the ultimate kind of hack or superpower, whatever you want to call it, is just like being really good at giving your AIs the context they
Context.
need. And it can, if you're talking about tools, every LLM has this idea of projects. So you set up projects with documents, and then you're working within the project. The project has files, instructions that are specific to what we're working on. And it becomes really good at that. So when I'm in a project, and let's say I want to design a logo, my prompt is create a logo because the context has been established, or write a blog post that works for, next week. I'm not defining like what the audience is. I'm not defining what is a good blog post for this company because the context already
Because it's
exists.
already there. And explain to me then how, and it already exists because of agentic AI, or now you're saying in any LLM, the context is already there.
It's your job to provide the right
Got it. You
context.
do the
So
work
like,
before, and then
so
the prompts don't matter as much.
as much, there's still iteration, but it's more like the initial prompt is simple, and then you're having this conversation, kind of directing it in ways that improve the initial output. But like if we were talking about the marketing field, let's say your space, your agency space, a project would be set up for a client. That project would have information about your kickoff meeting, about your strategy that you've developed so far, notes from previous meetings, brain guide they developed for that client, your content calendar,
Right.
your personas. And now the AI has all of that.
Now
So
the context is there.
the
Yeah.
context is there. So there is, some work involved in gathering all that. Once we get into agentic AI, like a lot of the context the agents can kind of grab themselves. But if we're talking more kind of chatbots, that's like really where the context comes up. So it's almost like setting up a workspace.
Right.
And then once you set that up, like the AI becomes really, really good at working within that context.
It's like slow down to speed up.
Exactly.
Yeah. Before we get to agentic AI, I'm curious because you mentioned just LLMs and kind of like, I don't know, sort of alluded to like different levels of usage of AI. And I'd love to hear from you, your perspective, or maybe it's a tip or tricks or kind of like best practices. But I think a lot of people, it seems to me like the adoption of chatbots has, I don't know if it's reached peak isn't the right word, but mass adoption, I'd call it for, everybody uses ChatGPT. If somebody's listening right now and let's say they're a business owner, more of a entry level person into, dabbling with AI, what would like step 2 be for them to start utilizing AI, or ways that they could even just use the LLMs in a more productive, more impactful way? Like, have you seen kind of what that step 2 is starting to look like for the masses?
Yeah, I would say like step 1, kind of taking a step back, is kind of like the LLM's kind of like the faster pen. It like just does work faster for you. Step 2 is really like creating workflows and having the LLM support end-to-end workflows, like going from starting point, whatever it is, the steps required to get to some sort of endpoint, like really fitting the LLM into work.
Mm-hmm.
And then, step 3, in my view, is like rethinking what you actually do. That's to me like the ideal is you realize that the LLM can actually do this. So now you shift your time to more impactful work.
Right.
So really like understanding where the capabilities are, where the LLM can basically do that task for you. And you can shift your time, to more strategic, more creative tasks that us as humans still thrive in.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. What would be your advice to somebody to that whole, like, I forget your exact words, but basically what you said is, exploring what it can do for you. And, well, I don't want to take the answer out of your mouth. So I was going to tell you what we've done here, but, somebody's kind of stuck in chat GPT mode, where they're using it as a chat bot. Like we said, it's kind of that phase 1 thing. And you had mentioned there, like thinking about how sort of that workflow, the end-to-end thing, and the actual work that it can do for you. How does somebody start with that? Like what would be your advice to somebody who's curious about step 2 or how to use it better, but doesn't really know how or where or what?
Yeah. I mean, you gotta like, first of all, think about the systems the LLM needs to work with, right? Workflows usually involve multiple systems. Maybe it's Google Drive, maybe it's Asana for project management. Like, what does it need to have access to? Modern LLMs, they have these things called connectors or MCPs, where they can work within those other tools and communicate with them. So the first step is really just understanding what the LLM needs to have access to. In order to even help you with a workflow. Because usually the workflow, again, like flows in and out of the LLM because you need to grab a file from Google Drive
And then
and
upload
then
it. And
upload it here and then create a, let's say presentation based on that file that goes here. So that LLM needs to have access to all of those pieces. So it's again kind of like a setup step. Like your LLM needs to be set up to support work.
Yeah. Yeah. And because what we've been doing here, and it's just because, I mean, my perspective with it is, so one, it's funny. A quick anecdote. I won't keep us, I'll keep us on track, but, we had probably extreme polar opposite ends of, human experiences last week. But while you were at Human X, I was at Banana Ball in Albuquerque, which, if, we saw the party animals versus the firefighters and the kids. But it was really fun, and it was really cool, but it was a good reminder for me about how important the human experience is always going to be. And like the way we make people feel matters. I say that here all the time. And so in an agency space, I feel like I'm kind of living in this collision of, human feeling and evoking emotion and being powerful storytellers and doing the things that we do well. And by necessity, needing to say at least somewhat on the forefront of AI.
Mhm.
And so my take on it has been is that we just have to continue to dabble, continue to play with it, And so we've said around here, like, if it's that thing that bogs you down or, lowers is not something you're jazzed on and it's a bottleneck in start just reaching for AI first and seeing if it can, help you through those bottlenecks or whatever. And it seems like it's opening up it's pretty cool. One thing you might appreciate this, or maybe I'm, it's way more elementary than I think, but we've always had a really hard time tracking digital advertising to in-person conversions, like e-commerce leads, stuff like that. If it's all digital, it's very easy for us to track a return on investment, or ROAS, as they say. But it's always been very hard to equate in-person purchases from a digital effort. So yeah, it's always been kind of, so I've got my Claude now. I've got a couple clients that are on device ID advertising, which is where we're serving ads to devices that have been in a physical location, but the goal is to bring them back to that physical location and have another in-person purchase. And it's been cool because I've been working with the clients to send me like revenue reports and things like that. And then I've been comparing that with the digital report and the performance, and then having it come up with an impact analysis. And it's awesome because where I would have in the past been way more insecure about claiming the value of it, from an ROI perspective, the things that it's been able to correlate, like the top performing market in terms of impression share of our digital campaign, also had the most increase in in-person sales and stuff like that. It's just like neat. And I think that's kind of what you're getting out of. It's an example of actual impactful work getting done that's not replacing me, like the human element with my client, but instead it's like helping us tell that better story of what's really happening. I mean, it would take me the amount of spreadsheets that I'd have to scrub through and I probably still would never get there, of like hundreds of lines of sales data and locations and stuff like that. And to be able to just plug it in and have a polished impact analysis. But that's an example of just trying, like reaching forward and experimenting.
Yeah.
And then you get a good thing. You're like, okay, I can do it for that. And then, over here, I'm just curious if you think that that's kind of, I don't know, the best step 2.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of learning, yeah, there might be like a course you want or workshop. I do a lot of them in the community, but ultimately most of the learning with AI, like I think it's good to have that foundation, but most of the learning is just going to happen based on, some people, Ethan Mollick, who wrote my favorite book in the space called Co-Intelligence, like calls it always bring AI to a table. And you bring it, and sometimes it does something really useful. Sometimes it's not as useful. And a lot of times when it's not as useful, there's probably certain things from a context perspective it just didn't have access to. But I think it's a great way to learn is just bring it to whatever is in front of you and try it and see how far you can push it. I think in marketing, we focus a lot on like, how does it help us create some sort of output, like a blog post, a caption, a video. an image for a social post. I think today, like the more profound impacts is like really thinking about AI as your kind of like operating system
Mm.
and like really breaking down how you do work and then figuring out like which parts of it maybe you don't enjoy. Like I don't enjoy working in spreadsheets.
No
And
one
if it,
does.
and I know a few people that do, but
Accountants. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
um and you know like just seeing if it can kind of like lessen your burden, like
Yeah.
it's just helping you do the things that are part of your job. And maybe it's, you know, not getting you to the final output, but it's helping you get there. And I would argue a lot of times I just like enjoy my work more. I would
Yeah.
say like I wake up in the morning more excited about my work every day because like I just like some of the things I genuinely do not enjoy doing, I don't have to do today. And I get to do like so many new things, so many different things. I can like jump into spaces I didn't have time to jump into. Like all of a sudden, like work is, in my view, like funner with AI. Like
Yeah.
I really get to like really push myself further than I could ever push myself because I have this AI operating system that's like helping me get to all these places I want to get to. So it's not about like giving me the deliverable, but it's like really like lessening my burden to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I think it's such a cool, it's like it's opening up space and energy to do the things that are, like you mentioned earlier, more impactful work, you
Yeah.
know, more of that like deep, whatever it is in whatever industry, whether it's creativity or strategy or whatever, but kind of taking you out of the mundane of it, you know, the getting stuck in the mud.
Yeah. I mean, like one way I think about it is like it takes kind of control or helps with kind of the production of things. And then like I have to make a lot of judgments in my day. But I enjoy that because judgments involve a lot of creative thinking, involve strategy. Maybe there's like a human relationship element. I can like focus on those things, which I enjoy. I think those are more kind of like human capabilities
Yeah.
than just like producing a spreadsheet or producing a report or producing like a summary of something. Like I can take that production and give it to AI, and then I can do great things with it.
Oh, I love, yeah. Like I love public speaking. I thoroughly enjoy it. And, but you want to know what I suck at? Building PowerPoints. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's been really cool because I've been using AI to help me build decks. And it's been awesome because I've always been one of those guys that like I thoroughly enjoy standing up in front of a group of people and talking about something I'm passionate about. Getting there by building the outline, building the PowerPoint, you know, doing the whole thing. It's like, it's a barrier almost for me. Where now I'll get an opportunity. Just last week I had one and it's so fun because I'm like, oh, I know how I want to tie this in. I did a whole presentation on the fact that leadership is branding and the human element of branding and the way we make people feel. And it was so fun because I got to skip the stuff that I hated building you know, I mean, it would take me, honestly, I wouldn't have done it, the speaking thing. But instead I'm like, oh, cool. Tweak it a little bit, make sure my personality's in there and it has context. But then it let me jump straight to the part I liked. And I would argue the part that's more impactful,
Yeah,
you know, because I got to have the thing on the screen, but really I just need to be there talking to
exactly.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I do a lot of presenting as well, and like for me, that's not like an enjoyable part as well. Just like the deck that
Right.
needs to be there. Just kind of since we're talking about slide decks, and I'm sure we'll get into agentic AI, but you know, one of my struggles was actually the software. Like I don't enjoy the software I use to create presentations. I've tried a bunch of products, there's a bunch of AI products, and it's just like not quite for me.
Right.
Like it doesn't like have the features I want it to have, it doesn't flow, the transitions, the visual styles, not quite there. So I actually had AI write me my own presentation software.
Right. The software.
Write the software, and then I had a clicker wasn't working, and I was like, AI, like make my clicker work, and made that work. And now I have not only like an AI helping me develop the slides, but also AI created like this, you know, an assistant during the presentation, my presentation software that's like really like intertwined with how I use it, my personal style. So again, like it's taking even more there, like the design work and the flow of the content. It's not even just the content itself off my plate. I
Yeah.
have like something that really reflects me, and then I can just like focus on delivery and making sure if it's like a workshop, like people learn what they wanted to learn, and I'm like as
As
present as
impactful.
possible.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that was built using agentic
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah. It was built using Cloud Code.
Tell me about and just knowing that our audience is probably pretty wide varying in terms of, expertise, because I want to pivot to agentic AI specifically. But can you talk to me to start, just describe like fundamentally what it is and why that's different than normal AI?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of I mean, it's here, but it's sort of, I think in my mind, it's kind of like what's next
Mhm.
in the AI space.
Yeah. So think about like chatbots. You're very much in the driver's seat. And then you have this kind of AI assistant, let's call it the passenger, and you're giving directions, but you're like driving the process. You're asking the question, you're getting a response, you're asking a follow up questions. You're really like in control of where things go and how you get there. With agentic AI, the paradigm shift is we give the AI a task or even like a high level goal, and then the AI drives. It determines
Wow.
how to get there. It knows the destination. It might even along the way ask you some follow up questions because you need some insight, like what is the right way to get there and things it should consider along the way. But it's set up to get to an endpoint. And it
So
has
it's in the driver's seat.
it's in the driver's seat. And, it could be in the driver's seat for like a minute doing some basic research for you. It could be now in the driver's seat for like an hour, like developing piece of software and coming back with initial version. But it makes so many decisions along the way to that destination where you're not like saying, do this, do this, do this. The AI is determining like the steps it needs to take to get there. So that's the way I like to think about agentic AI. It's like really in the driver's seat. Now there's a human there starting the process, still evaluating the output, whatever it created, whatever goal it achieved. There's still judgment, but it's just happening with a lot more work happening in between. It's not this back and forth. It's
Mm.
like the AI has, the steering wheel to a large degree. You do set some parameters. Obviously, like you're ultimately still in control of what the AI does,
For
but
now.
hopefully forever. Um, and like how much control we can give to the AI, like how big these tasks are. It's becoming bigger and bigger.
Well,
So
yeah,
it's
because didn't they? And you're gonna probably, I'm so outdated now because it was yesterday, not today. But I saw somewhere the agentic AI can now replicate. It was like a 14-hour human task or something like that. And now, and I know that like basically what I'm getting at is the scope of capability is expanding enormously. Like it used to it used to help us write a blog post, but now it's like full blown. Do you remember? Do you know the stat I'm talking? But like somewhere it was equating it to human hours.
Yeah, I mean,
Like how
companies
complex
publish
the
it.
task
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, with all the model releases, they basically have like this metric on like autonomously how long can the AI model just kind of work. Yeah, and it's in many hours if you push it far enough. In terms of like how big the goal is. Yeah, I mean I would say agentic AI has been here for maybe let's say like 6 to 12 months, but really what's changed it's like the scope of tasks it can just take
Yeah.
off your plate, and it's just quite I don't know like to me that um, I think it's here. I think the near term, I think it's very, very clear where it's going. And I think a lot of what I try to educate people on is just like how profound that is. Like the chatbot era was profound, but the fact that we can have AIs just like create something for us, like the presentation software.
Yeah.
I just like
That's crazy.
I prompted it, I left it alone, and gave me first product. I had some like follow-up instructions. It's missing this. I like this better. But I think that took like maybe like 2 hours, but I was like in front of actually like typing or talking to my AI for maybe like 2 to 3 minutes of that. Most of the time is just out there kind of
In the back.
in the background doing its work. And with agentic AI, you can also run many of them in parallel. There's now this idea of a multi-agent kind of setup where you have this orchestrator agent that might have a researcher agent, a design agent, a developer agent, and they all communicate with each other and coordinate.
Wow.
So that allows you to, again, like expand the task, where a task could have a research, design, development component, a marketing component, and they kind of coordinate with each other along the way. Each agent has a specialty. And then the orchestrator kind of makes sure everybody's doing what they're doing. And the orchestrator eventually comes back to you saying, here's all we did.
Yeah.
So it's not even like one agent, it's
multiple agents working cooperatively.
Exactly.
I got to wrap my head around that.
I mean, like just a couple like examples of what's possible. These aren't personal examples, things I came across on Twitter. Let's just do one example for short. Like somebody got their x-rays back, and the software that the doctor's office was like, it was unusable. I'm sure we've like experienced bad software. The person was like, hey, probably Claude Code. Hey, I need like my own software to read my own x-rays, and personalized software for them. So I think
would you be afraid to be in SaaS right now?
Well, I mean, you're seeing that in the stock market.
Yeah.
I think some of that, like the Salesforce types of companies, that they have a big moat, they have pretty profound products. But I think like, some of those more niche SaaS products that, there isn't a clear moat that can't be replicated. Yeah, I would be worried. I mean, like my personal example, I was paying like $144 per year and without naming the software. And I was just like canceled.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's $144 that company's not going to make.
Right.
So I don't think it's a point where like the big software solutions need to worry, but you're starting to see in the stock market that in the long term, there is genuine worry that a lot of these business tools that we use can just be replicated. And, a lot of times creating something that's better because it's specific to you.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a profound shift, and you don't see it until it's in front of you. It's almost hard to believe sometimes.
Yeah, I was going to ask for more examples of agentic AI in use. Like the software one, just to help me wrap my head around it, and the listeners. Like, any others come to mind of?
Well, maybe I can just kind of like talk to my usage of agentic AI, because it's pretty wide spanning. I kind of dip my toes in many areas. So, I do, like, I'm not a designer, but I need design work to happen for me. Like I need a flyer, I need some sort of visual for an event. The other thing to mention of agentic AI, not to overcomplicate it, is you can actually teach it new skills. There's like skills you can find on the internet, but you can also teach it skills. Like, here's how I like things to be designed.
Right.
You teach it once and it can replicate things. So for me, agentic AI a lot of times is creative work where I just need a visual, and I, like, yes, I could technically like do it myself, but that's really not the crux of my work. I'm not that good at it. And the agentic AI, when set up correctly, does it well. I think any sort of like large scale research, for me, that's agentic AI, like going to many sources, many databases, many websites, and condensing it down and making sense of it. That's a very classic agentic AI task for a lot of people, not just myself.
So was my barn shopping example a use of that?
Yeah, I mean, you could have had like an agent like do more work for you and then come back, right? Because it sounds like you were still in kind of the chatbot.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You were going back and forth, but like you could have defined like one of the skills in agentic AI is like describing the problem, right? Like, here is what I'm trying to solve. Here's what are the important parameters. Here's like dimensions and constraints and preferences. And then as long as you describe that well, it will do that job really
Yeah.
well. So really, I mean, it kind of really captures what agentic AI is. It's like if we can define something and give it the parameters, and with, as long as it's described well enough, it can usually like do a bunch of work for us without involving us because we've already described what we want.
Right.
Like it doesn't need to come back to us. It already knows. Let's say I'm creating a website. Like it has the, you know, my visual preferences, maybe has some example designs I like. It has the logo, it has the brand kit, it has the general site map. Like it doesn't need to ask me, do you like this page? Do you like this content
Yeah.
block? It just, the problem was defined well enough and the goal it needs to achieve. Or I can say, go and do it. Like you don't really need to involve me along the way. I'll let you make some judgments. So it's really any kind of task where there's a lot of, in the chatbot area, a lot of back and forth. And if you can kind of get it just going down the journey without involving you, and that's going down the journey in the way you want it to go,
Put it in the driver's
it's
seat. Yeah.
it's there. I mean, I think for me, like what makes it most exciting is it makes things that only coders could do, like accessible to anybody.
Yeah.
Like the ability to create your own software. I have like another personal example is like I just wanted to develop an iOS app, kind of a personal context, and it was actually like a present for somebody. And I was like, I wonder if I can create this like very specific iOS app to this person in a day. Like I have a computer science background, but I just don't write code.
Right.
And I have not created an iOS app in I don't know how many years. And it, you know, there was definitely some back and forth, but created something for me within that day. I had it. It was on my phone. It actually involved some like real-time audio where somebody was like talking to an LLM. So it had some, even some advanced
Like
features. And you know, I didn't touch a line of code. Now, there is, you know, if anything involves like security, personal information, like I still wouldn't fully trust agentic AI,
Right.
because some of those things, like you still need expert developers. But in terms of like giving the ability to at least create a concept by yourself, if you're a non-coder, like whatever's in your head, all of a sudden can
It
happen.
can be real.
It can be real, and it's so amazing. Like I mean, the presentation software, the app, are just like the tip of the iceberg
Right.
of what I've been able to create. And I would kind of coming back to your point, like you wouldn't be able to give that talk. Like I wouldn't have those things if
Right.
it wasn't for agentic AI. Like my coding skills are too rusty. I don't have a budget for any of these things. I don't really have time to devote to maybe them more than like a couple hours or a day. And now all of a sudden, like I can create that.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that's like where agentic AI is starting first. It's like this ability of non-coders to create things that are just in their minds and they can describe to the agent.
And knowing that that's where it's, yeah, starting first. And I can already tell you, Tom, we don't have nearly enough time. So we're gonna have to do this again. But I'm fascinated. I want to get your honest perspective on, with the little bit of time we have left, on what's like after agentic AI. And I'm going to preface this with that. I'm sure you've seen all the Elon Musk stuff that I've seen, and like there's a lot of narrative out there about like like Elon. I'm going to butcher it, but he's basically saying, I'm the words escaping me, but anyway, he's predicting that eventually, like we're talking about things like high income, high standard income for everybody, and like hundreds of millions of jobs, being lost and things like that. I'm curious because it's such an extreme dichotomy. Like that's why I can tell we don't have nearly enough time. We have 10 minutes is all, but There's this one hand, like I see you light up with this app that you got to build for somebody that you care about. Like how cool that is, right? Like I get to do more public speaking because I don't have to build decks. Like there's these great, it's cool, it's amazing. It fills us up. It lets us pursue our passions. And then there's this like, well, I get a little doom and gloomy on it. I don't know how to say it better than that, but like, there's these projections of like hundreds of millions of jobs being lost. And the other day he was talking about how it's going to get to a point where there's more robots than humans, and to the point where they even predict our needs. Like you're not even going to have anything to ask for anymore. They're already predicting it. And like, here's the next thing. And I'm curious, like well, I want your perspective on that. That's what I really want. Like, and kind of what you think, because if we've seen this leap from chatbots to agentic AI in 5 months, like what does realistically 5 years from now look like? Or do we have any idea?
Yeah, I mean, I think most
And
predictions
I know
are
I just
just
opened up a can,
yeah.
so, but we'll
Yeah.
dabble with the,
I mean, I think there's a lot of like nuance and complexity to this AI question. I think a lot of times is lost in some of those sound bites. A person that I really like in this space is Dario Amodei. He's the CEO of Anthropic, the company behind Claude. And, he's even had some pretty dire predictions himself. I think his prediction is 50% of all entry level, I think people miss that, entry level white collar jobs are going to be gone in the next 5 years. So, like, first of all, like the entry level piece, I do think like there's some real impacts of AI on entry level work today. Like,
yeah.
Students, I think, are being impacted. Entry level workers are being impacted. Um, I don't necessarily think that a lot of jobs are like just going away. I don't think actually that's like the right employer approach. It's also evolving a lot of jobs, where kind of coming back to previous things we talked about, like focusing less on humans producing something, but really like leaning into judgment. And I think that's why we're seeing entry level work today being impacted. Is a lot of the entry level work,
There's no room for judgment.
Yeah, there's no room. The person's not allowed to provide that judgment because they're entry level workers. So they're like told to, create some piece of content, write a report, create a slide deck. Like it's just producing thing. Do the thing. So I think, from an employer perspective, I think there's a lot of thought that needs to go into is how do we shift those entry level jobs to work alongside AI, not be like, well, we don't need that role. I think a lot of times I would argue still need the role. It's just the role is different.
It's evolving. Yeah.
It's evolving. I do talk to a lot of individuals that are just like starting their careers or students. My advice to them, and we can kind of come back to some of the bigger questions, but I think the entry level question is like the most prominent one right now, like in front of us. What I say is, AI fluency is like paramount today. There are 2 job markets, I would argue, people that are really fluent with AI, like new opportunities, a lot of, jobs. Like I've former students that have like many, many job offers right now,
right?
Because they're so fluent in AI. They have this AI skill set versus individuals that don't have that skill set are in a very different place. So I think that's important. I think also as quickly as possible, shifting into more strategic, creative, human roles is important. But I think employers need to kind of allow for that.
Give space for that. Yeah,
exactly. So some people say like we need kind of this residency model where entry level workers like follow somebody like you so they can like get into those spaces more quickly because they're given those opportunities and those kind of learning spaces. So that's like the first thing that's in front of us is really, I think, like an evolution of entry level work and what does it mean, and still making it work alongside of AI. I think the bigger questions, I lose sleep over all the time. I don't think a a lot of the predictions might come true, but I think some of them might. And I think we have big questions in front of us as like individuals, as business owners, as governments, as just entire
As
societies,
human
as human
beings.
beings. And I won't say like all my work in AI is just like being excited about creating things. I do like grapple with some of these bigger impacts because, mm, some of them are probably going to come true and we'll have to have pretty big shifts. What gives me some hope is we've had a lot of technological shifts in the past.
And we've been fine.
Yes, we've
For the most part.
Yeah, but there was like this transition period that was pretty painful.
Mhm.
Jobs were like replaced, through the internet, let's say. I will say like AI to me is more profound just because of the places it can go no other technology has
It can
gone.
be in the driver's seat.
Exactly. I mean, again, like in that example, it's in the driver's seat, but there's still
There's
like
parameters, there's guardrails.
there's still like, I don't know what the metaphor would be, but there's still like a human judgment
Right.
involved in like getting it to
We
go
can turn the
down.
car off
We can turn it off.
or give it directions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to stick with the analogy, but
I mean, the one I actually saw it this weekend in San Francisco that I really like. There's a movie called The AI Doc. It's a documentary on just these questions. It kind of talks about like the individuals that are like really worried about
Mhm.
where we're going. There's individuals where basically the counterpoint where this is just going to open up like this era of
Of
abundance,
abundance, yeah.
of creativity, of like pure human kind of attributes being front and center, no longer creating spreadsheets and writing emails. Like we get to do like great things that we want to do as humans.
Yeah.
So, I kind of like, I like to listen to both sides, and I think both sides are important, but there are two narratives. And at the end of the day, like part of one might be correct and part of the other might be correct.
Likely the case. Yeah.
And I think it's just important to know like what the two sides are saying. And then I think a lot of it's just like individuals just like saying like, here's what I believe is going to happen. And then preparing myself for that.
Right.
To be honest, like I've made like decisions around just like what I prioritize in my daily life based around where I think AI might be heading, or even just like where I devote like any sort of like professional development or where I invest money. Like all of those things are intertwined in whatever vision of AI you think
Yeah.
is coming. And I think it's important to like think critically through it because it's not simple.
Right.
And ideally, like you form an opinion.
Right.
Like you don't listen to somebody like Dario Day or Elon Musk and say like that's exactly correct. Like listen to many views and then
And actually listen, because like what I just said too, and you brought it up, and I'm glad you did. I'm talking about an 8-second Instagram soundbite with zero context. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think we have to be so careful to like get the whole story. Like, listen, you know what I mean? That, like you said, there's so much nuance there, because I think about that idea of like predicting needs. I can't think of anything worse. Like, human fulfillment. Like we need adversity. We need a challenge to overcome. Like it's like this whole dilemma with, trying to raise my kids right. I wanted to have these great childhoods, but I also wanted to be resilient and tough and, like have these great traits that don't come with an easy, good life. And it's like, these conflicting things. And so, anyway, yeah, I think it's important to remember that what you just mentioned there of like hearing it all, but also like not just that little out of context, quick Instagram soundbite that now you form your whole life around.
Yeah. And there's, I think, a lot of like really smart people. Again, people are thinking about this. And I think within the AI industry, there's some like really good people, like really wanting the best for society.
Yeah.
So
We have to.
Yeah. I mean, just even from like just like common business sense perspective, like a large language model that's going to cause havoc on our society, like that's not a
It'd be
good
fun.
business model.
You know what we should do sometime? Because we have to do this again because we are out of time. I promise you, and we have to wrap right now. But you know what we should do sometime is explore the game theory of AI. I studied game theory in college. I don't know if you've, but I'd be fascinated to like really unpack the game theory. Because like you just said, like there's a lot of reasons to make sure that there's like the game theory of it, you know, of making sure that it's good for business and good for their family and like their, you know, geopolitical stuff, game theory with it. Maybe that's how we tee up our next one. Tom, I'm bummed out. I have never had an hour fly by so fast.
Yeah, it flew by for me.
Like
too.
I feel like I got like an inch deep and I wanted to go a foot deep. But I have to tell you, thank you. I don't want to wrap it up right now, but I have to. But just thank you so much for sharing your perspective, sharing your insight. You got to promise me that we can do this again.
Sounds good.
Because all this did was present more questions. I mean, this has been phenomenal, but I need like 3 hours with you. So we'll find some time, but thanks for being a forefront. And actually real quick before we wrap, thank you too for doing what you're doing in our small communities. And, you know, like you mentioned your workshops, and I'm so excited that, you know, we're working with you on some consulting initiatives and some projects like that. And, it's worth me calling that out, that you bring by nature this great balance of, you know, small town, rural, human, and AI expertise. And so I want to sincerely thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
But yeah, this has been amazing. I could keep going and going. Like I'm having a hard time wrapping it because the gears are cranking. But anyway, all of that to say, Tom, thank you so much. I really appreciate the conversation, and this will not be the last. It can't be. All right.
Sounds good.
Okay.
We'll do it like much sooner than a year this time.
Yes, yeah, like next month or something. Let's seriously, we'll carve off some. I've learned I need way more time with you, so that's a good thing. So thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you.